Anin Bojo Kena, Davin Dumas and Nikas, Kawi Quendoga and Donji. A Chene Minandam Nom, I be a Wetman to be a Gido Nom. Chimigwech Mike Mitchell, I Nakunate Nom. Migwechi in him. Good morning, everybody. My name is Davin Dumas. I'm currently the Director of Languages and Cultures for the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center. So this morning, I wanted to share a little bit about our organization, about some of the good work that's happening, and possibly look for partnerships. We're always in the process of looking for partnerships in any way we can to improve First Nations education for our children. So, and I'll refer to our organization as MFNERC or MFNERC. You'll hear me use, so that's what I'm referring to as our organization. I just want to say I see Gail. Hi to Gail, who is one of our communities in Manitoba. So to start off, MFNERC is a second level services organization, and I'll say plus, because we do a lot more than provide second level services. But we provide services to 39 communities with 43 schools. So that encompasses a lot of different things. So in the Languages and Cultures Department, for example, that I oversee, we provide in-school supports for all the subject areas: literacy, numeracy, language and culture, land-based education, physical education, and so forth. We also provide publishing services. We publish books, resources, materials. We do resource development. We also have a school system, a First Nation school system that's part of MFNERC, and they are operating exactly like a provincial-run school system with a whole bunch of additional supports that go way over and beyond any supports that any provincial school division in Manitoba provides. And we also have inclusive education services, which we house a whole bunch of clinicians in psychology, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech and language pathologists, and they are on the go steady providing those services to our schools. So the schools and communities that we service stretch from the farthest northern community to the most southern community in Manitoba, and everywhere in between. So our staff are now starting to get back to traveling to communities now that the pandemic seems to be leveling off or subsiding. Our staff are able to start entering the communities. Each of our communities has different protocols and processes that they have for our staff entering. One of the big ticket things that's been happening, and I assume with everybody, is the mandatory vaccination policies and so forth that are having to be developed and so forth. But overall, our organization has been in existence for over 21 years, and it was started by the big six, we call them. There were six of our larger communities who came together and said, with the direction of the chiefs, and saying that we need to ensure that our smaller schools and smaller communities receive services. So as opposed to monopolizing on all the proposal writing and everything, they band together, and MFNERC was created so that services to the many could be provided in a way that was fair and equitable. So with an organization like ours, the second level services piece is really important, as we've known for many years. And when we talk about resiliency, we've known for many years what has been needed for our children in education in Manitoba. Our tomorrows today. Wawang was written and put out in 1971 by leadership here in Manitoba, and that document was in response to the white paper, 1969, and that document, still stands as a foundational document that we referred back to regularly as things that were outlined, recommendations, and so forth that were outlined in there are still relevant today. So this year celebrates the 50th year of WABA. There was a new document that's being released. We oversaw the publishing. WABA is Resiliency is the title of it. So that's available. It's looking at the past 50 years and what we've done. But I think one of the things that I really wanted to focus on this morning was one piece of work that we've been working on for about 4 years now, and that's the development of a First Nations curriculum framework, as it's called right now. I'll say as it's called right now because that may change. Curriculum is not one of our words, our First Nation words, so we're still having discussions about that. But the framework itself started off with community consultation. So the staff that were involved with that process in the beginning visited over 40 communities, meeting with parents, knowledge keepers, educators, and looking to hear what they feel we should be teaching our children, how our children should be taught, and so forth. So there was a massive amount of information and data that was collected as part of that process. And from that information, we started to work on the development of a framework, curriculum framework, First Nations curriculum framework. And the goal of that framework is for our children to know, and for us to know our First Nations language and history, understand the spiritual connections to the land and the people, learn our traditional knowledge and skills, and live with the values of the community and nation. And doing that in our ways of, in our traditional ways of knowing, being, and doing is what we want to focus on. And so right now our framework is divided into 4 time periods. And we felt that it's important when we talk about those time periods to give an accurate history. So the document is actually going to be called Our Stories. And we want the framework and the curriculum that will be following to tell our story, our Manitoba story of our people, to tell the real truth, to tell the real history of our people in Manitoba. As you may know, we have 5 distinct language groups in Manitoba, and each has a rich history of governance, of relationship to the land, of culture, tradition, and so forth. So when we talk about the 4 time periods, I'll explain them briefly. So the first time period answers the question, who were we? So that first time period, you know, if you want to think about it in other terms as the pre-European contact history, how did our people live? What were their beliefs? What were their values, their traditions, their relationship to the land? What did the economy look like? What did governance look like? What were some traditional systems? And this is the area that we've already identified that's going to require the most work and research, is finding that history, finding that accurate history and teaching our children and ourselves about that. In one of our focus groups, we you know, senior educators, knowledge keepers, we kind of all looked at each other and said, you know, man, there's lots we don't know. There's lots that we need to learn ourselves. Never mind, what do our children coming up need to learn? So that's the first time period. And like I said, I think it'll bring a lot of pride to our people and our children in knowing who we were in that period of time. The second time period is what were the impacts? And that's referring to the arrival of the foreigners. So what were the impacts? How did that change our ways of life? What were the immediate impacts? The third time period is what happened and what did we do about it? And the focus there is colonization and resilience. So I think a lot of times the young people question, well, how come we didn't do anything about it? But I believe there were things that were done. There were things that allowed our languages, our cultures, our traditions, our practices to be carried forward while we still have them. So there has been and always has been a resilience. And that last time period is who are we now? And that time period is going to focus on reconciliation and decolonization, which are terms that have come up today. So overall, our framework, and when we put it into context, we have over 10,000 years of history in that pre-European contact phase that we need to address. And the other 3 areas is 500 years, roughly. So where does the emphasis of our curriculum framework need to be? Does it need to be in the last 500 years or in the 10,000 years of rich history that we have prior to the first foreigners coming to Turtle Island? So those are the conversations that we've been having, and we're excited. It's an exciting project. We have a number of knowledge keepers that are participating with us. We're going to need a whole bunch more support from our elders and other knowledge keepers once we start moving into the actual development. A lot of the work that our staff are doing right now is in developing resources that will support the framework on history, on ways of living of our people, even with decolonization, reconciliation, resiliency, and all those types of things that are very, prominent in conversations that people are having today. And I know Maureen talked about it a bit, but we need to define and what those terms mean for us as a region, as a people, and that's what we need to teach. So, there's lots I can talk about. There's a lot more projects, a lot more community-based initiatives, working with language, creating language resources and so forth. But I know I've been given the 1-minute sign. So, and again, I encourage anyone who is interested, they can visit our website, mfnerc.com. We have tons of information, resources that are available, and we continue to grow. We continue to have positions available for different initiatives, even with some of the projects that are coming as part of the Indigenous languages component funding that we've been approved for. We just posted some positions with that. So there's lots of good things happening. And I appreciate the time to speak about our organization and some of the initiatives we have this morning. Chimibet.